of Macedon by Harold Lamb, Chapter 9 of Part 2. The Woman of Damascus. If the young leader showed only healthy gratitude when darkness came down on Issus, and they learned that the defeat of the Asiatics had been a complete rout, the officers became nearly hysterical in their excitement. While Alexandros had been returning along the escape road, many of them had been investigating the immense Persian field camp, captured intact with its tents, standing, and food ready to serve. Promptly they led Alexandros within a brigade, now without guards, to a group of pavilions where the lamp flames flickered through a colored glass. They walked in on carpets, showed Alexandros an onyx bath filled with scented water. He started to take off his arms. "Let's wash off the dirt," he said. "And Darius's bath, Dareiavaush, not and Dareiavaush's," somebody corrected him, "and Alexandros's." Stripped, he examined curiously the water jars, wrought gold ointment vessels, and glass scent throwers. They put him in the portable tub, sluiced him with fresh water, and rubbed him down with nard, and saturated the air with rose water. "So, this is royalty," Alexandros said. The towels were immense and soft as duck down. The colored lights shed illusion over the hard, sunburned faces of his friends. Draped in one huge towel, Alexandros laughed, shouting for cooks and supper. "Well, look," yelled the companions. They led him through a curtain. There, low tables of hardwood inlaid with ivory figures had been loaded with fruits, spiced meats, and rice in gold dishes. Embroidered quilts lay around the tables. Surveying these, Alexandros ordered most of the rich food carried outside to other officers' mess. Even in Corinth, he had never seen so much food in one room. He lay down on a quilt, peering at the embroidered pattern of heraldic beasts fighting each other, his injured hip swollen into a knot of torture, pouring libations, gulping wine, snapping dirty jests. The companions reveled, wiping at their own hurts. Coldly, scheming, ambitious, there were gifted builders and deceivers. They felt that night something like awe for the big tired man with unchanging, questioning blue eyes who had grown up with them. Between goblets, they called him Achilles and Heracles. They had seen sacks weighted with gold coins. They were eating sweetened food from gold plates, and that man in the towel had driven the great king, the king of the lands of the earth, driven him headlong on a racing horse into the night. Why, Dareiavaush the second, well, aren't they going to encounter the second at some point? Why, Dareiavaush the first had merely stopped trying after Marathon and had turned back with his armada, the royal Xerxes, or however you say that in Greek. Some of the spelling's not even the Greek spelling, but I'm trying to conjure up the meaning. Well, conjure up's probably the wrong word, but had gone off after Salamis in state with the Phoenician fleet, but here this night on Asia's soil. They called him Alios, and had got up to pat his shoulder and kiss his cheek. They had found Asiatic women in the camp, slender Syrian girls, small, trim Capriatas, half-Negroid girls from Memphis, and other kinds they did not identify. Besides, they had Alexandros's promise that the last great battle was behind them, and usually they could prevail on him to keep a promise. sipping his wine, Alexandros listened to them, not caring to drink, but feeling warm and comfortable in their exultation. Then he heard the shrill wailing of women. What was that? Only they told him, the women of the great king in the tents next this dining pavilion, the women who had seen or heard of Darius's shield and bow brought back from that road. So they thought he was dead, and they wailed. Who were they? The mother of Darius, the wife of Darius, whose name sounded like Statira, who had a better figure than Thais, a real beauty, and a couple of daughters, along with an infant son, calling over Hephaestion, or, as some say, Leonidas. Alexandros gave instruction about the royal women. Tell them all I have of Darius's are the shield and bow. Darius is alive. Tell them, and he made decisions swiftly. Give them my assurance that they shall be now as they were before. Have they servants? Yes. Well, they are to keep those servants. Eunuchs too? Someone asked. At some point I might share a book on eunuchs with y'all. All of them. What money was paid them before, they shall have in the future, and they shall not be approached without ceremony. Even the drunkest of the company fell silent at this. It meant that Alexandros would keep the royal Asiatic women hostages, apparently for a long time. It meant that all Macedonian officers would have to avoid the sanctuary of those women, because high-born Asiatics secluded their females even more closely than the Greeks. It meant, lastly, that Alexandros did not intend to enjoy physically the heaven-sent opportunity of having the daughters and wife of his enemy. That's another thing armies shouldn't, when they win, they shouldn't be allowed to rape. But, objected one, the beauty of these Persian women. Their beauty, said Alexandros, is a torment to my eyes. The companions found no comfort in these words. The physical attraction of the Oriental women was no torment to them. Most of them had been separated from their homes for a year and a half, except for some of the newly wedded, and most of them had only longing for companionship. They did not understand Alexandros. Well, he's still missing the one. It's not just whatever attractive woman you can get your hands on, right? Few of them seemed to believe what was often said, that Hephaestion and the king were inseparable and lovers. Such homosexuality among the Greeks was common enough, had been more common than not in the sacred band of Thebes, who had died, for the most part, at Chaeronea. Besides, there was often a mystical soul fellowship shared by two men that would not have troubled the army officers. Alexandros, however, appeared to be an ascetic. His thoughts were bound up too much in sacrifice and fasting and nightly study, yet they felt that he had too much vitality in him to be a true ascetic, and the army had no desire to practice such asceticism. A few days later, Alexandros laid down another premise. He sent a written order to Parmenio to try and execute, if found guilty, 2 of his officers who had violated the wife of an allied officer. The women of allies, whether barbarian, Asiatic, or Greek, should be respected as their own. Such men as those 2 are to be treated as wild beasts. The letter ended, well, certainly people who make choices like that are worse than wild beasts, but just about this time, one of his own staff wrote to say that a certain Theodorus of Tarentum had 2 lovely boys for sale. Alexandros, reading, was heard to mutter, "What filth have all of you observed in me, to offer me such boys?" And he dictated a short answer to the lieutenant. Alexandros de Philoloxus, greeting, "This Theodorus and his merchandise can go to hell with my good wishes." And in the Bible, it says that people who have sex with pre-adolescents should be killed. That's interesting. Side note there, of course, let's leave this up to the state. Let's encourage the state to bring back these laws, but people, oh, this dude's behaving himself. He must be in stuff really bad because we're not noticing him doing anything normal. It's like that sort of thought needs to stop. It's even went on amongst the Greeks. People who thought that, oh, let the soldiers rape. No, no, don't let the soldiers rape. Thank you very much. When he received another offer of a Corinthian boy, he lost his temper, and Parmenio, getting wind of the army's talk, rode in for a discussion with his young commander on the subject of women. Probably the chief of staff pointed out that Alexandros had no wife, mistress, or child, or even a Greek prostitute. He, Parmenio, had sons of his sons, Philotas and Nicanor, serving with the army. Even Harpalus had a son who was an officer. Without son to succeed him when he died, Alexandros would become more alone. Such a condition was abnormal and bad for his health. Besides, there was the question of succession to the throne, and other stuff. Boys in the Hellenic age were often married at 15 or 16. Okay, well, yeah. Adolescence is not a time to say, oh, wait for your desires, pretend like they don't exist, and they might serve as cadets in the army, even younger. Often men of 25 were veterans of 10 years' service. The Macedonian commanders were young, on the average, but had almost continual service. You call these barbarian women. Soulless dolls, Parmenio reminded him. Since you would not marry in Macedon, it is better to take a common barbarian girl into your bed than a woman of royal Asiatic birth. Alexandros seemed to avoid women. Undoubtedly, after freeing himself from his mother's morbid domination, he saw something of his mother in other women. The death of Cleopatra's baby and his father's obsession with mistresses might have influenced him, sensitive as he was. It seemed also that he did not like to have prostitutes following the tents of the higher officers. To this he could not well object if he had such women of his own. Whether Parmenio's advice decided him, or whether he was attracted to her, soon after he did take a woman into his tent on the coast, he singled out Barsina, the widow of Memnon of Rhodes, who happened to be among the captives taken at Damascus. Of Barsina, it is known that she was quiet and gentle, a daughter of a noble Persian home, but educated in Greek school. She must have been a few years older than he. Certainly, Barsine did not try to influence Alexandros. Placidly, she kept to her own quarters, working with her few servants, listening to such talk of the men as she happened to hear, and making no demands for herself. Calm in her seclusion, the widow Barsine accepted Alexandros as neither an honor to her nor a punishment. To other men she appeared as a shallow in the curtained space that was her portion of the pavilion, yet Alexandros seemed to find rest in her tranquility.